From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Soy Negre. The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been holding talks with President Nicolas Maduro on his visit to Caracas. President Maduro welcomed Erdogan with honors at the Miraflores Palace and showed him some of the items in the historical collection there. This is the first visit by a Turkish head of state to Venezuela. Erdogan expressed his support for the Bolivarian government against the economic war and the sanctions it is suffering.
I am positive that my friend Maduro, thanks to the support of the Venezuelan people, is going to resist the attacks the country is suffering. I want my visit to be considered as a symbol of collaboration of the Turkish with the Venezuelan people.
Earlier, President Erdogan laid a wreath at the Pantheon in Caracas, where the heroes of Venezuela's independence are buried. The two countries are keen to strengthen cooperation. Turkey will share knowledge with Venezuela to help in its economic recovery program. The former president of Peru, Alan Garcia, has left the Uruguayan ambassador's residence in Lima, where he was seeking asylum. This comes after the Uruguayan president, Tabaré Vázquez, denied his request. The former Peruvian president is accused of receiving $100,000 from Odebrecht over the construction of the Metro Lima. He had been in the ambassador's residence since November 17th.
The three powers of the state work freely in Peru, and it is the judiciary that is conducting the investigations of possible economic crimes of the former president of Peru.
Our correspondent in Peru, Veronica Insausti, has the latest.
Former leader Alan Garcia was forced to leave the ambassador's residence this morning after learning of the Uruguayan president's decision not to grant him political asylum. President Tabaré Vázquez says there was no evidence to support the politician's claim that he was being targeted politically. After Garcia's asylum request was turned down, the former president went back home to an exclusive area in Lima. And the international press is waiting there outside his residence, hoping to speak with him. But up until this moment, only his personal secretary has read out loud a short letter in which he denies any illicit association with Odebrecht. He also says from now on he's willing to cooperate with investigators. On the other hand, President Martin Vizcarra says no one in the country is exempt from judicial investigation. Politicians have had mixed reactions to this decision. Most, however, have reportedly accepted it.
The Vice President of Ecuador, Maria Alejandra Vicuña, has been temporarily relieved of her duties. This after the scandal that involved her in an alleged network of illicit payments for her party. Now, according to Vicuña and President Lenin Moreno, she's been suspended from her duties to allow her to focus on her defense. The suspension will last until December 31st. Our correspondent in Quito, Ecuador, Denise Herrera, has more on this.
Hello, yes, good afternoon. Indeed, Ecuador's President Lenin Moreno confirms he is removing from his duties the Vice President of Ecuador, Maria Alejandra Vicuña. In official statement, he said that he decided to suspend Vice President Maria Alejandra Vicuña from her duties with the aim she has her right to a legitimate defense. Those functions will be taken by the government General Secretary José Augusto Briones. We should remember that the Vice President of Ecuador, Maria Alejandra Vicuña, was accused of receiving bribes from her advisor. He had in an official statement, one of her advisor, Angel Sagbay, said in an official national media that he had to pay bribes when she was a lawmaker at the National Assembly. Also, President Lenin Moreno announces new changes in his cabinet. He announced new Minister of Education, Secretary of Intelligence, and also of Environment. He also put in charge of the Secretary of the State for Policy, the Interior Minister of Ecuador, Maria Paula Romo. We have to wait if Maria Alejandra Vicuña will take responsibility of hers this allegation against her. He also said in an official statement in her Twitter account she will take time to face these allegations. Is all the information we have for now. Back to you at the studio.
Thanks for that, Denise Herrera. The 18th special meeting of the heads of government of the Caribbean community is underway in Trinidad and Tobago. The summit will focus on issues surrounding the implementation of the CARICOM single market and economy. The CSME seeks to create a single economic space in the region by removing restrictions.
We have to go back to the basis. Can we survive independently? And I don't think there's any scenario that any one of the countries in the CARICOM can survive by themselves. And we need to be part of a group, and hopefully today, with the leadership of Ms. Motley, that we can regain that momentum that we had many, many years ago, and solve some of the differences that we have, and to make sure that this is an equitable place, and that it's strengthening our region and making us more competitive against the rest of the world.
Other issues we have to talk about, the issue of transportation, the fact that we have so many problems getting to each other's countries in the region is a serious problem. Sometimes it's easier to go to Miami and London than it is to go to some islands in the Caribbean from Grenada. So clearly we can't be talking single market and economy and not have means of making contact with each other physically and otherwise.
Guyana's oil reserve estimates have been hiked by 25%. This after the U.S. oil giant ExxonMobil made its 10th discovery offshore the South American country. The Department of Energy Director, Dr. Mark Bino, says this latest find is expected to facilitate substantial social and economic improvements. This discovery reinforces Guyana's potential to produce more than 750,000 barrels of oil daily by 2025. The United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP24, has begun in Poland with dire warnings that time is running out to save human civilization from catastrophe. A number of world leaders and personalities told the opening ceremony that action is needed now. The veteran naturalist David Attenborough said climate change is the most serious threat faced by human beings in their modern history.
Right now, we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale, our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon.
The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres told the conference that almost everyone understood the gravity of the threat, so it was extraordinary that the world continues to head in the wrong direction.
According to the World Meteorological Organization, the 20 warmest years on record have been in the past 22 years, with the top 4 in the past 4 years. The concentration of carbon dioxide is the highest it has been in 3 million years. And the emissions are now growing again. Climate change is the most important issue we face. It affects all our plans for sustainable development and a safe, secure and prosperous world. So it's hard to comprehend why we are collectively still moving too slowly and even sometimes moving in the wrong direction. The IPCC's special report tells us that we still have time to limit temperature rise, but that time is running out.
Jamaica's Prime Minister has called for more action and less talk on climate change, which poses a serious threat to small island states. Andrew Holness told the G20 meeting in Argentina that small Caribbean states do not have the luxury of engaging in philosophical debate on the issue. Holness nudged G20 leaders to make good on the agreement to mobilize $100 billion per annum to address climate change. And there is a call for Jamaica to consider a closed season for the parrotfish. Government Senator Matthew Samuda has made the suggestion in a bid to save Caribbean reefs from extinction. Parrotfish keep the amount of algae down to beneficial levels by eating them. However, the marine species is heavily overfished in the Caribbean. Caribbean coral reefs generate over $3 billion annually. Experts estimate that these reefs will disappear in 20 years if the fish population isn't restored.
And that's really what this is about.
And earlier we spoke to our correspondent Watmore Makokoba at the Climate Change Conference in Poland. We asked him what are the big issues facing this COP24.
I think, as you have heard, the Secretary General, the United Nations Secretary General, are making a clarion call for nations to really be serious about combating climate change. So these are the very topical issues that people, all the countries that are represented here, are discussing and talking about. And the major issues that are being discussed here is to measure and see if countries have really done much to beat the Paris Agreement target of reaching zero carbon emissions by 2030. But now the situation, through assessing, I'm actually seeing that all countries here, they are agreeing that time is running out and there's really no time to waste now. So I think those are the major highlights that are happening today with the official opening of the COP24. And we've also seen developing countries also trying to make their voice heard in terms of asking for aid, in terms of making sure that there is justice in the allocation of resources. And we've also seen that there are some selected developed countries which are also saying we need to negotiate. Like a country like Poland, where we are right now, is a country that heavily relies on coal. And now with the call to reduce carbon emissions, they're saying people need to negotiate because their economy is heavily reliant on thermal power production.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again in a minute. Welcome back. The U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has met with the incoming Mexican Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard in Washington, D.C. In a tweet, Ebrard explained that they discussed their shared commitment to address the common challenges and opportunities for the future. This as thousands of migrants wait to cross the U.S.-Mexican border. Meanwhile, United States Border Police have arrested and detained members of the migrant caravan who crossed the U.S.-Mexico border between Tijuana and San Diego on Sunday. Thousands of migrants from Central America attempting to enter the United States to seek asylum have been stranded at the border for weeks now. They are trying to escape poverty and violence in their home countries. Our correspondent in Tijuana, Alina Duarte, has the latest.
We are standing outside the Benito Juarez shelter, which has been closed. However, there are hundreds of migrants who have decided to stay at this location. There are several reasons for that decision. Some of them are making requests to work here in Mexico. Others are seeking asylum in the United States. The remainder are adamant that they do not want to be reallocated to the shelter known as El Barretal. You see, that shelter is located in one of the most dangerous areas in Tijuana, so people are quite desperate at this point. They don't even know where they will end up. But still, they have decided to stand their ground and remain in this place. 15 migrants have embarked on a hunger strike, which is now in its 5th day. Meanwhile, the federal government has promised to provide some aid to those who have chosen to stay.
Mexico's new president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has set up a truth commission to investigate the case of the 43 students who disappeared from Ayotzinapa. López Obrador signed the presidential decree in the presence of the students' relatives. Deputy Secretary for Human Rights, Alejandra Encinas, will head the commission. And following AMLO's swearing-in ceremony on Saturday, and for the first time ever, Mexico's presidential residence has been opened up to the public. Just hours after taking office, López Obrador officially opened the doors of Los Pinos to ordinary citizens. Within 2 days, the residence has already received over 85,000 visitors. Many have expressed their surprise at the opulence on display inside the residence, which includes a 28-seat dining room and a private movie theater.
Inconcebible el poder This is unbelievable, to be able to walk through that door and be able to understand what President López Obrador tried to tell us, that this belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to the presidents. This belongs to us.
I think this is fabulous. My heart is filled with joy because I never thought in my entire life, and I'm 65, that I would step a foot into this place.
And Mexico's presidential plane will soon be sold, according to the new government. The Mexican president said during his electoral campaign that he will put the plane up for sale as it was a symbol of excess. The interior of the plane includes a presidential bedroom and a marble-lined bathroom. It was purchased for over $350 million in 2012. Following the G20 summit in Argentina, trade unions, social movements, and human rights campaigners are renewing their protests against the impact of the severe economic crisis. Our correspondent reports.
The summit has ended. The leaders of the 20 most powerful countries have left. But for the people of Argentina, everyday life is just the same, marked by economic crisis, cuts, and hunger.
We have to resist with a policy for the people, as was done in the previous government's 12 years. We need to boost consumption and give the poor a dignified life. That is the only way to save the country, not through summits where they come to do their international deals.
The G20 was held in a country in recession, with a sharp increase in extreme poverty, unemployment, inflation, and debts. Social movements want an alternative to the current neoliberal policies, which are openly subordinate to the United States and the IMF.
Macri was the ideal host for them because he's the perfect representative of neoliberalism, the right and imperialism in today's world.
In Argentina, we are losing jobs every day. Wages and pensions are going down. These demonstrations are part of our plan to resist throughout the country.
Social movements are not letting up on their protests. At the end of the school year, teachers in the province of Buenos Aires are beginning new stoppage in response to the lack of wage rise throughout the year, and with inflation running at more than 47%.
Their offer was a disgrace. They want to cut our wages by 15% compared with inflation. Never since the military dictatorship has an Argentinian government attacked public education or insulted teachers so much.
After the world's leader debated their agenda, which ignores the right of the most vulnerable and only creates more poverty, Argentina's social movements are back on the street, condemning the policies of hunger and poverty imposed by the government of Mauricio Macri.
The mayor of Asunción in Cajamarca, Peru, was murdered on Sunday night. Manuel Vigo Munoz was killed in the town square while out with his wife. He was ambushed by two persons on a motorcycle who fired at him at close range. His wife was injured during the attack. So far, there is no official word on her condition. The mayor had been receiving death threats. And Chilean police who tried to disperse protesting indigenous vendors came under a volley of vegetables. Officers took cover as the Mapuche women showered them with the edible projectiles. The vendors are demanding the right to continue plying their trade in the streets of Tumaco. The new law, which came into effect on December 1st, banned unlicensed street sellers from operating in the area. One of the former police officers involved in the murder of the Mapuche Camilo Catrayanca in Chile has claimed that he was forced to lie and give false testimony. Carlos Alarcon said via a video shared on social media that there are facts from the case that haven't yet come to light. He denies having acted as a criminal during the raid in Tumucuicui on November 14th and said he doesn't want the police to be tarnished by this scandal.
Some things are yet to come to light. Those of you that know us know we do not act like criminals. You know none of us are criminals. There are people who force us to lie, to give false testimony, and we have become the worst of the worst, the evil of society.
The Maya Quequeche people traveled to the capital of Guatemala over the weekend to demand that the lands that were taken away from them be returned.
Ancestral authorities and Maya Quechua people from northern Guatemala traveled 400 kilometers to the Supreme Court. 2 years have passed since they presented a legal action in which they demand that the lands that they have been living in for centuries be returned. In 1905, they were taken away by the municipality.
There are
almost 16,000 people living in these 36 communities. The government can't do this. We are making the claim before the Supreme Court so that they give us property titles.
According to the Kekchi, 36 areas of land have been taken over by the municipality of Chiniqué in the last century. The action was conducted without previous consultation and with the approval of the dictatorship of the time. They affirm they have given evidence to the Supreme Court to prove that their ancestors have lived there since the 17th century.
We have the concrete basis of our history. In 1785, our ancestors and our grandparents were already living here, and we have all the evidence. We come from generations of Quechua people. We were born here, and we will die here.
Cases like this, in which indigenous populations claim the right to their ancestral lands, which were taken away from them deceptively, still dominate the country's courts. The majority are land extensions which were purchased from the Spanish crown.
This conflict is shared because they took lands away using the laws of the time, legally displacing the land's communities through corrupt policies. There have been many conflicts to date that agricultural institutions haven't been able to resolve.
The Maya Kekchi people say they will not allow others to take away what belongs to them, and that they inherited the lands from their ancestors for future generations. They require property titles in order to have legal ownership of the place where they live.
And we'll take a short break now. World News is next.